Hi, folks. We are back with readings of R.K. Narayan, Swami and Friends. We finished up end of chapter 3 and today we are starting chapter 4. It is titled, What is a Tale? The geography master was absent and the boys of the first A had leisure between 3 and 3:45 on Wednesday. That is 45 minutes would be the duration of one class so that the attention can be maintained. After that, these children will lose, anybody will lose interest, so the class cannot go on for more than 45 minutes. That's the general rule. So between 3 and 3:45 on Wednesday. Somehow, Swaminathan had missed his friends and found himself alone. He wandered along the corridor of the infant standards, that's the little children. To Swaminathan, who did not really stand over 4 feet, the children of the infant standard seemed ridiculously tiny. They were the little babies. He felt vastly superior and old. When looking at the small babies, Swaminathan felt, oh, he's so big and so powerful and very superior and old. He was filled with contempt when he saw them dabbling in wet clay, trying to shape models. It seemed such a meaningless thing to do at school. Why, they could as well do those things resembling elephants, mangoes, and whatnots in the backyards of their homes. That's what Swaminathan thought. Why did they come at all to school, all the way to school, to do this sort of thing? Schools were meant for more serious things like geography, arithmetic, Bible, and English. In one room, he found all the children engaged in repeating simultaneously the first two letters of the Tamil alphabet. He covered his ears and wondered how the teacher was able to stand it. He passed on. In another room, he found an ill-clad, more noisy crowd of children. The noise that they made sitting on their benches and swinging their legs got on his nerves. He wrinkled his brow and twisted his mouth in the hope of making the teacher feel his resentment. But unfortunately, the teacher was sitting with his back to Swaminathan. So he did not see Swaminathan twist his mouth and face. Swaminathan paused at the foot of the staircase leading to the senior classes above, the second and the third forms. He wanted to go up and inspect those classes which he eagerly looked forward to joining. He took 2 or 3 steps up, then changed his mind. The headmaster might be up there. He always handled those classes. The teachers, too, were formidable, not to speak of the boys themselves, who were snobs and bullies. He heard the creak of sandals far off and recognized the footsteps of the headmaster. He did not want to be caught there. That would mean a lot of unsatisfactory explanations. It was with pleasant surprise that he stumbled into his own set, which he had thought was not at school. Except Rajam and Mani, all the rest were there. Under the huge tamarind tree, they were playing some game. Swaminathan joined them with a low, ecstatic cry. This is in the compound of the school, under a huge tree. It was a tamarind tree. Tamarind is one type of fruit which we use in cooking. So, and the tree is very huge and it has got wide branches and lot of shade, and it is very comfortable under the shade of that tree. So, many children were playing there under the tree. And what were they playing? Swaminathan joined them with a low, ecstatic cry. The response disappointed him. They turned their faces to him with a faint smile and returned to their game. They did not welcome him very approvingly. What surprised Swaminathan most was that even the genial Somu was grim. Something seemed to be wrong somewhere. Swaminathan assumed an easy tone and shouted, "Boys, what about a little place for me in the game?" Nobody answered this. Swaminathan paused and announced that he was waiting for a place in the game. "It's a pity we can't take more," Shankar said. "There are people who can be very efficient as tails," said the P. The rest laughed at this. So somebody said somebody can be very efficient as tail. "You said tail, didn't you?" asked Shankar. "What makes you talk of tail now?" I just feel like talking, so I'm talking. But do you care? It doesn't apply to you anyway," said P. "I'm glad to hear it, but does it apply to anyone here?" asked Shankar. So P said, "It may apply." "What is a tail?" asked Swaminathan. So a tail is a long thing that attaches itself to an ass or to a dog. So this is teasing Swaminathan like anything. Swaminathan could comprehend very little except that the remark contained some unpleasant references to himself. His cheeks grew hot. He wanted to cry. The bell rang and they ran to their class. Swaminathan slunk into his seat with a red face. It was the English period presided over by Vedanayagam. He was reading the story of the old man who planted trees for posterity and was paid 10 rupees by a king. Not a word reached Swaminathan's brain, in which there was only a dull pain and vacuity. If he had been questioned, he would have blundered and would have had to spend the rest of the hour standing on the bench. But his luck was good, and so he did not have any question. The period was over. He was walking home alone, rather slowly, with a troubled heart. Somu was going a few yards in front of him. Swaminathan cried out, "Somu, Somu, Somu! Won't you stop?" Somu stopped till the other came up. After a brief silence, Swaminathan quavered, asked hesitantly, "What is the matter with you fellows?" "Nothing very particular," replied Somu. "By the way, may I inform you that you have earned a new name? The tail, Rajam's tail, to be more precise. We aren't good enough for you, I believe. But how can everyone be a son of a police superintendent?" With that, he was off. So all the rest of the class was pissed off with Swaminathan because Swaminathan had become close to Rajam. This was probably Swaminathan's first shock in life. It paralyzed all his mental process. When his mind started working again, he faintly wondered if he had been dreaming. The staid Somu, the genial Somu, the uncle Somu, was it the same Somu that had talked to him a few minutes ago? What was wrong in liking and going about with Rajam? Why did it make them so angry? He went home, flung his coat and cap and books on the table, gulped down the cold coffee that was waiting for him, and sat on the pure, vacantly gazing into the dark intricacies of the gutter. Pure is a dark volume of water was rushing along inside the gutter. Odd pieces of paper, leaves, and sticks floated by. A small piece of tin was gently skimming along. Swaminathan had an impulse to plunge his hand and pick it up, but he let it go. His mind was inert. Sorry. He watched the shining bit float away. It was now at the end of the compound wall. Now it had passed under the tree. Swaminathan was slightly irritated when a brick obstructed the progress of the tin. He said that the brick must either move along or stand aside without interfering with the traffic. The piece of tin released itself and dashed along furiously, disappearing around a bend at the end of the street. Swaminathan ran in, got a sheet of paper, and made a boat. He saw a small ant moving about aimlessly. He carefully caught the ant and placed it in the boat and lowered the boat into the stream. He watched in rapture its quick motion. He held his breath when the boat with its cargo neared a danger zone formed by stuck up bits of straw and other odds and ends. The boat made a beautiful swerve to the right and avoided destruction. It went on and on. It neared a fatal spot where the waters were swirling round in eddies. Somnathan was certain that his boat was nearing its last moment. He had no doubt that it was going to be drawn right to the bottom of the circling eddies. Eddy is when water flows at some certain points, it will have some obstruction and something, so it will go around it. And so the water starts swirling round in a sort of circle and circuitous current. That's a swirl. So he had no doubt it was going to be drawn drawn down to the bottom of the circling eddies. The boat whirled around madly, shaking and swaying and quivering, swaying and quivering. Providentially, a fresh supply of water from the kitchen in the neighbor's house pushed it from behind out of danger. But it rushed on at a fearful speed. So this water was coming from the kitchen wash where they wash the vegetables and the pots and pans. So and the water all flows out from the house's drainage, and it was flowing out and outside into the street. And he has put a boat in it with an ant for a passenger. That was very cute. So, but it rushed, then presently it calmed and resumed a normal speed. But when it passed under a tree, a thick dry leaf fell down and upset it. Somnathan ran frantically to the spot to see if he could save at least the ant. He peered long into the water, but there was no sign of the ant. The boat and its cargo were wrecked beyond recovery. He took a pinch of earth, uttered a prayer for the soul of the ant, and dropped it into the gutter. In a few days, Somnathan got accustomed to his position as the enemy of Somu and company. Oh, that's good. It's not very long. In a few days, Swaminathan got accustomed to his position as the enemy of Somu and company. All the same, now and then he had an irresistible desire to talk to his old friends. When the scripture master pursed his lips and scratched his nose, Somnathan had a wild impulse to stamp on the pea's leg and laugh, for that was a joke that they had never failed to enjoy day after day for many years past. But now Somnathan smothered the impulse and chuckled at it himself alone. And again, when the boy with the red cap nodded in his seat and woke up with a start, every time his head sank down, Somnathan wanted to whisper into Peace's ear, "Look at that fellow, third on the first bench, red cap, now he's falling off again." And they would giggle. But now he was estranged. He secretly bit his lips and kept quiet. Somo was looking in his direction. Somanathan thought that there was friendliness in his look. He felt a momentary ecstasy as he realized that Somu was willing to be friendly again. They stared at each other for a while, and just as Swaminathan was beginning to put on a sweet, friendly look, Somu's expression hardened and he turned away. Swaminathan was loitering in the compound. He heard familiar voices behind, turned round, and saw Somu, Shankar, and the P following him. Swaminathan wondered whether to stop and join them or wait until they had passed and then go on in the opposite direction. For it was awkward to be conscious of the stare of three pairs of hostile eyes behind one's ears. He believed that every minute movement of his body was being watched and commented on by the three followers. He felt that his gait was showing unfavorably in their eyes. The way he walked was showing unfavorably in their. That's what he felt. He felt they were laughing at the way in which he carried his books. There was a slight itching on his nape. His hand almost rose, but he checked it, feeling that the scratching would be studiously watched by the six keen eyes. He wanted to turn to his right and enter the school hall, but that would be construed as cowardice. They would certainly think that he was doing it to escape from them. He wanted to run away, but that would be no better. He wanted to turn back and get away in the opposite direction, but that would mean meeting them square in the face. So his only recourse was to keep on walking as best he could, not showing he was conscious of his followers. The same fellows 10 days ago, what they were. Now what formidable creatures they had turned out to be. Swaminathan was wonderstruck at the change. It was becoming unendurable. He felt that his legs were taking a circular motion and were twining round each other when he walked. It was too late to turn and dash into the school hall. He had passed it. Now he had only one way of escape. He must run. It was imperative. He tried a trick. He paused suddenly, turned this way and that, as if looking for something, and then cried aloud, "Oh, I left my notebook somewhere." Raised his hand and was off from the spot like a stag. He ran away. That was chapter 4, and I think it was a fairly okay chapter. It was telling the story of how Swaminathan had become so friendly with Rajam that all the other boys in the class had got offended with him. So they had named him the tail, that he was Rajam's tail, and they were making fun of him. And he was getting uncomfortable whenever he met all the other boys, Somu and Shankar and the P and all that. So that ends chapter 4. Next, we'll read chapter 5, and that will be the next day. Okay, bye. Thank you.